Hello, and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Hype. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior Vice President and Executive Editor at Large at Black Enterprise. And this edition of Beyond the Hype is being brought to you by Citi. Listen, we are living in amazing new times, particularly for us as business people, whether we're corporate professionals, whether we're entrepreneurs. Most of us are some combination of the two. And one of the key elements of our ability to do what we do is networking. Today's guest is a master networker, maybe the original master networker. He appeared on the cover of Black Enterprise of our July 1994 issue of our magazine with the release of his now timeless classic book, Success Runs in Our Race. He's written other books, including Click, the 10, let me get that right, the 10 Truths for Building Extraordinary Relationships, which really tells directly into what we're going to talk about today. He is the founder, chairman, and CEO of FraserNet. Let us welcome to the show the one and the only Dr. George C. Fraser. Hey, welcome to the show, Dr. Fraser. Welcome to the show. I'm going to call you George only because we know each other so long.
Please, absolutely,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes,
Alfred, it's so good to see you. We have many years behind us. We have been connected for at least a generation.
yes.
In your early days with Black Enterprise magazine, where the Earl Graves was a mentor of mine and is responsible really for a significant rise in my career. And I love him for that. I love Butch. I mean, the whole family. We have been connected at the hip, and so it's just good to see you, and it's an honor to be sitting before you and having this interview. Really, I'm I don't get nervous, but I'm a little nervous on this. I mean, this is an iconic publication in my life. I grew up on Black Enterprise magazine. I was there when it started, so thank you. It's a
Oh,
joy to see you.
it is my pleasure. And the reason why I wanted you to have you as a guest on Beyond the Hype in this place and this time is we're living in an era where networking has a whole new connotation. Um, in some ways unchanged, but in many ways changed significantly than what it was in the back in the day. And when I say back in the day, we're talking when I first came to Black Enterprise, we were doing networking forums. Black Enterprise is doing networking forums in different cities. Again, it was I would consider the first real original master networker, really talking about how that applies to building businesses and careers and building lives of significance. Because for you, it wasn't just about I want everybody to know me so they can buy my products and services. It was about what is your impact on the world. And again, you appeared on the cover of our July 1994 issue, considered one of the most memorable issues. That's why I never forget which issue that was, with the release of Success Runs in Our Race. Again, a timeless classic. And I wanted to have you on to talk about what networking, relationships, what it means to be an influencer, a word that is, in some cases, I think, overly used today. In an age of social media and influencers and hybrid work and virtual work, what we're doing now in terms of interviewing shows how much things have changed since the magazine days. Remote work, George, during the course of the pandemic, I've interviewed several high-level corporate executives on this show who were telling me they are managing people that they never met face to face because of the economic shutdown of the pandemic.
That's right.
But business still had to be done, and it's like, how do you wield authority, command respect, get things done in an environment where your ability to establish and build relationships is no longer predicated on being able to see people face to face and clasp hands and look people in the eye in a personal way. So I just thought this is a great time as people try to build careers and build businesses with people now all over the world. You can build a business with somebody that's in another country, but what does that mean for the core principles of what networking and building relationships mean? And I'll give you a quote. You speak of our late founder, Earl Graves Sr., as a mentor, obviously as someone who's worked for his company for now over 30 years. One of the things he used to tell us is that business is personal, and whoever has the best relationships wins. It's about building great relationships, not just selling something or marketing something. So just give me your before we jump into that. First, tell me what's going on with you, with FraserNet, with I follow you. You're on the road all over the world, speaking. That's the other thing. I was like, I can't believe I got you because I know you're everywhere. But what's going on with you right now? You're not showing any signs of slowing down.
Oh my God. I'm 77 years old. I feel 57. I mean, maybe 77 is the new 57. I don't know.
I hear that.
But I just feel awesome because I'm doing work that I love.
Yes.
I'm with people that I love. I love you. I love Black Enterprise. I love everything that Earl Grey Sr. meant to my life. Um, he said it. He said it first, probably. I'm probably modeling the behavior that he articulated to a whole generation under him. He was 10 years older than me, but he grew up in Bed-Stuy, as I grew up in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, New York. And I have taken his thoughts about business and relationships. I've created my own trope as it relates to that. And I say that business is about relationships. Without relationships, you have no business. Without relationships, you have no business being in business. In fact, the business we're all really in is in the business of building relationships. That's the business that we are in. People ask me all the time, Dr. Fraser, you are marvelous at selling sponsorships. What is your secret? I said, well, my secret is very simple. I've sold millions of dollars in sponsorships over the last 40 years, but I've never sold one penny of sponsorship to someone I did not have a close personal friendship with. They're all relationships. So let me say that a different way. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you're hanging around with 5 broke people, in a very short period of time, you will be the 6th broke person. The fastest way to change yourself is to hang out with people who are already where you want to be. That's why I tried my best to hang out with Earl Graves Sr. He was where I wanted to be. What's the point here, Dr. Fraser? Don't spend major time with minor people. People going nowhere want you to go nowhere with them. People doing nothing want you to do nothing with them. If you want to change your life, change your relationships. If you are not where you want to be in life, it's because you simply do not have the right people in your life. Relationships. We are a communal people. That's how God has designed us. There is no success that you can attain, sustain, or maintain on your own by yourself in a vacuum. It is all about people. In fact, you want to really know what your wealth is? Your wealth are your friendships, your family, and your relationships. These are people that you serve and people who serve you. There's a biblical declaration for the human connection. This is not something Dr. Fraser made up or Mr. Earl Graves Sr. made up. There's a biblical declaration. It is a direct quote from Jesus Christ. There are 800,000 words in the Bible, Alfred, and only 1,200 words are from Jesus Christ. John 5:30. And Jesus said, I of my own self can do nothing. Now, this was
Right.
Jesus, the Son of God, right? He needed 12 disciples to get his work done. So, the power of connection, the power of the human connection is what God wants for us. This is how he has designed us to be communal and to be collaborative.
Yeah,
And if we don't get that, we tend to stay where we
as
are.
the word says, we are
So
all of one
God's
body.
love of connection is
Yes, it's like
clear.
we're all of one body. This is the spirit, abides in us. It's us collectively. It's not just us as
That's right.
isolated individuals. The other reason, again, I wanted to have you on for this discussion is I know you point out that you're 77, but the truth is you have not let generational barriers stop you from connecting from subsequent generations. I mean, I look at some of the people that I mentor, and they point to you as a mentor, even though you're a mentor to me. You're obviously very visible and active on social media, um, which is one measure of that. But even off of social media, many of the people that I know, people like Dr. Randall Pinkett, for example, you know, they are younger than I am. They're perhaps two generations from you, but they still see you as a direct mentor, role model for how networking and engaging with people and building businesses work. And I think that that's commendable in an era where both workplaces and businesses trying to market or trying to learn how do you communicate across generations to provide goods, services, and to get things done. Talk to me about your ability to really maintain relevance in your relationship building. Whether you're talking to millennials or baby boomers, or even or anybody in between.
Yeah, there are two things to maintain relevance. A, you have to read. The average American only reads one book a year. If you commit to reading one book a month, in 5 years you will have read 60 books, and the average American will have only read five. You have to stay informed, because part of bonding, part of effective networking is to be conversational. I call it conversation or intelligence, conversational intelligence. You have to know a little something, something. So you have to be an inch wide and a mile deep in your subject matter expertise, and then you need to be a mile wide and an inch deep in matters of the world, so that you could talk about something other than sports and the
Mm-hmm.
weather. So part of being relevant is being up to date with things that are going on in the world, so that you can comment on them, so that you can seek advice and counsel on them, so that you can uh, solicit other people's opinions and thoughts. And as you do that, you appear interesting to the other person when you're asking people about things in their life. One of my favorite questions when I'm around a couple at a conference or something, one of my favorite questions to ask a couple is, how did you two meet each other? And was it love at first sight? Well, that conjures up a whole conversation, because typically how a person communicates how they met the other person differs from the opinion of the opposite person. So it's all very interesting, and it's a lot of fun. So my point is, to stay relevant, you have to be conversational. To be conversational, you have to read. To be to stay relevant, you have to be interested in people. I love people. And I love people for all the obvious reasons, because all of my wealth comes from people. My wealth really is my network. People that I serve and people who serve me. This is why God was so in love with connection, right? Connection was very clear, and he made it very clear that the human connection is your wealth. He gave us two ways to ensure that we connected: sex and money. Sex and money, right? Now, he motivated us to connect through sex by ecstasy. There's nothing that you can experience of greater ecstasy than great sex. But that's not the full purpose of sex. The purpose of sex is procreation. God wants us creating more of his children to serve us and for us to serve. Now, money. Why money? Money is the primary incentive, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, for service. So if you don't develop a skill, know a little something, something that you can bring value to and serve people with, you can't earn money. Money is the primary motivation, right, for service. So we're all here to serve. The purpose of life is really very, very simple. I don't mean to get too philosophical to everybody, but it's very, very related to effective networking. What is the purpose of life? It is to love, to give, to serve, and to add the highest value to somebody or something every minute of every day. And this is borne out in how we should properly introduce ourselves. And most of us, that's one of the big mistakes. There's a talk that I give all the time called the seven biggest mistakes we make when networking that will ruin your reputation and destroy your business. And one of them is a poor self introduction that should take no longer than 20 seconds. People don't want to hear your entire life story, right? People, you lose their attention after about 20 seconds. So that means you've got about 70 to 80 words to speak in those 20 seconds. And there are five elements to a wonderful self introduction when you're out amongst the crowd meeting people. The five elements, if you'll let me go through it very quickly: who you are, where you're from, and what you do. Those are the first three things: who you are, where you're from, and what you do. The last two are the most important, Alfred. How do you add value? And if you add real value, quantify it and
Mm,
prove it to me. So let me give you
yes.
my self introduction when I'm out in the crowd. It varies from event to event, but it goes basically like this. Hi, I'm Dr. George Fraser from Cleveland, Ohio, by way of Brooklyn, New York. I'm the CEO and founder of FraserNet Incorporated. I write books and put events on in effective networking and building wealth. I help people turn acquaintances into friends and contacts into contracts. And over the last 40 years, I've helped over 8,000 people secure nearly $2 billion in new
That's
business.
effective. That is very
Good to meet
effective.
you.
No one's going to forget that they met you.
That's 71 words. It takes about 18 to 20 seconds. Now, if you're not interested in how I add value and I've quantified it and prove it to you, you won't request a card because I don't give out business cards. I give them to people who
Mm,
request them. All right. And because we're in social media era, I have my picture on my card. Right. And then I have my books that I've written on the back of the card. So everything you want to know about me is on this little card. But I'll only give it to you if something I say piques your interest and you want to continue the relationship for a longer period of time. I don't go to an event passing out business cards. That's a huge
mm.
mistake and that's foolish. So I wanted to teach that little quick lesson. A self introduction is one of the most powerful things that you can create. Now, people have asked me, Dr. Fraser, how long did it take you to create that self introduction? It took me 77
Wow.
years. That's how long it took me, right? You got my life story in 20 seconds, but it's 77
Mm,
years of work, right? So it wasn't the same self introduction that I was giving 40 years ago, right? And it has evolved over time. So just take inventory of your life. What have you done? How have you added value? How have you served? Quantify that, right? And then that's how you introduce yourself. It's a powerful introduction. It will pique people's interest, and that's the purpose of a good introduction, Alfred. Is all it is to give people enough information about you so that they will want to know more about you later, not all night.
my audience is in for what I wanted this to
Okay?
be, a master class in networking. So don't hesitate to keep those lessons coming, George. These lessons, these principles of master networking, I'm going to call it master networking, are so important, especially today. Now, even back in the day, like you said, people didn't. You and I've been to enough conferences to remember being pigeonholed by somebody for 20 minutes just trying to give you the resume, the life story, the business pitch, all in one, you know, at one time. And of course, like you said, after the first 20 seconds, you're gone. Even if you're not rude enough to walk away,
No.
they've lost you, often permanently.
Yeah. Or if they're not
Yeah.
gone, here's a clue. They're looking
Mm,
around. They're looking over your
mm.
shoulder, right? And they're ready to get on. Now, you may not physically be gone, but mentally you are gone.
True.
That's exactly right. So you really have to manage your time and get right to the
So,
cut right to the
what do you
chase.
see as the challenges of today when a lot of our interaction, and it will always be this way, obviously we're returning, thank goodness, to a lot of face-to-face, in-person interaction, whether it's at work, whether it's at conferences, whether it's at webinars and seminars. We are returning, but there's always now going to be a element of human interaction that's going to be remote. That's going to be, I'm managing my team who may be scattered around the country, around the world. I'm interacting with my boss and he's in Los Angeles, I'm in New York, or even with our family relationships. One of the things I think that was positive with economic isolation of the pandemic, at least in my case, was I was in contact with my family a lot more. We were doing these family Zoom calls, but they still weren't a substitute, if you will, for going to, for example, the family reunion that I'm going to this summer that we didn't get to have the last couple of years to see and meet and greet people and spend time with them. Give me your thoughts in broad strokes about what's changed when it comes to networking and relationship building today, given the virtual hybrid nature of some of it, and what still are tried and true things that no matter how you're doing it, I think communicating the service you provide is one of them. That it doesn't matter whether I'm talking to you on this platform, Riverside FM, or we're at a coffee shop talking face to face, or we're at a conference. There's certain things that don't change about how do you communicate the value of the relationship to one another.
Yeah, boy, that's a great question. And I've watched you many times. You ask great questions. You ask really deep questions. It's obvious that you're a student of the subject because you know just how to frame it and just how to say it. And you're a master networker because you have a very, very, very high
Thank you,
conversational
Dr. Fraser.
intelligence.
That means a
That's
lot to me.
part of being a master
Thank you.
networker. Um, that's A. B, most people are networking the wrong way. They're networking to get something. Wrong. You network to give. And as you give, you get. If you ain't giving, you ain't getting. If you have nothing, it's because you've given nothing. That you cannot take out of life that which you have not put into life. Now, this is especially true when you're trying to meet important and powerful people. So, A, if you want to network and meet important and powerful people, you have to be where important and powerful people are because they're not coming to you. And then, if you're lucky enough to get a moment or two with them, what you're really trying to find out is how can you serve them? Now, for as long as I could remember, one of my goals, early goals when I was a young man growing up on the mean streets of Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, New York, was to meet Earl Graves. I didn't know him at the time, but I saw him. He was always clean as a hotel chitlin. He had a tache case. I mean, proper. And he was working as a in the political realm. I think it was with Robert Kennedy at the time. Yada yada yada. I always wanted to meet him. I was just very attracted to how he comported himself. And so I did get a chance to meet him casually at an event, at a Black Enterprise event. I went to that event not only because I was interested in meeting the people there, but I really wanted to get to at least to meet Earl Graves. And I did. And I asked him at that time, Mr. Graves, is there any way that I could ever help you? Is there anything that I could ever do for you? I live in Cleveland, Ohio. Please do not hesitate to call. Many years passed, and Black Enterprise magazine put on a networking tour. It was 7 cities, and Cleveland, Ohio was on the map for one of the cities for this tour. And I volunteered. I said, I'd be more than happy to work on the committee, free of charge, anything you want me to do to help bring this incredible event to Cleveland. And it was Mrs. Graves who said, "Would you like to chair it?" I said, "Of course." I chaired it, and it was an awesome event. I got a chance to meet Earl Graves up close and personal. The event was very, very successful. So here is one of the most powerful men in my lifetime, right, that I wanted to meet, and I found a way to serve him, to touch the hem of his cloth. And that ultimately led, and I didn't know this, 6 years later, after I wrote Success Runs in Our Race, I ended up on the cover of Black Enterprise Magazine. Now, I wasn't doing it to be on the cover of Black Enterprise Magazine. I was doing it because I had mad respect for this person. And I just wanted to meet him and serve him, not knowing that at some point in time I would write a book. I wasn't even thinking about it at the time. When I wrote the book, I sent, or not I, but William Morrow, the publisher, sent Mr. Graves a copy, said, would you review this and comment on it? He did. He loved it, and he made it, I think, one of the first book excerpts of Black Enterprise Magazine. But I didn't do what I did for him back 7 years earlier because I wanted to be on the cover of Black Enterprise Magazine. That wasn't the purpose of it. But one thing leads to
Yes.
another. And that is the approach that we have to take when networking. You give first, you share always,
And,
the
and
getting
the,
comes
the
later.
capacity to serve
Okay?
doesn't stop just because you're not physically in the same room. You know, I've been doing social media. One of my daughters calls me the social media OG because I was into it before I knew that it was going to mean anything. You know, back in, I'm going to say like blackplanet.com. Anybody who still knows what blackplanet.com is, you were there at the very, very beginning when it had nothing to do with work. It was just, you didn't know what it was going to be. But one of the things I figured out over the years, I mean, and I'm going through MySpace and eventually I got on Facebook and Twitter, was that as opposed, like you said, it's not about what people can do for you, getting them to follow you, getting them to like your stuff. I eventually became focused on if I'm going to share something, who is it going to help? You know, and a lot of times I share things that aren't me. They're promoting one of my mentees' businesses, or somebody had a triumph, or that, and I'm sharing that because it was just more personally rewarding. It was a more personal, better use of my time to do something besides say, look at me, look what I could do, look what I want, look what I want, look what I want.
Right.
So your principle of networking is about connection and service, which, like I said, is biblical,
That's right.
applies whether we're talking on Zoom or whether we're talking on Instagram or whether we're sharing. And I literally, Dr. Fraser, George, I keep calling you Dr. Fraser because I respect you so much. I literally spent the last 2 weeks on Instagram unfollowing about 200 accounts. Not because they're bad people, not because they offended me in some way, but eventually I was like, if I'm going to go through my Instagram stream, I want to feel like that whoever I'm following is actually bringing something of value to my life, and I'm not just scrolling through funny videos just to be doing it. Now, if they're really funny, I'll keep it because it makes me laugh, which is a service too. But
Right.
I really want you to drill down on this idea, like you said, whether you're talking about 1970, 1990, 2000, or 2022, that networking to give, networking to bring value, and it's not just bringing value to the rich and powerful, it's also bringing value to the person who looks like they really can't do anything for you. Because many of those people later on can do something for you, and they remember
That's right.
who was helpful to them when they were just an intern at your intern, or they were
Right.
just fresh out of college, and they were just starting their business. So I really do. I know we can talk about other principles. That this idea of networking to serve, and not just to get people to like and comment and share your content. I think it's an important one for you to emphasize this idea of service, and being in business being about service, no matter what
Yeah.
your product or service is.
Yeah. You know, I watch you a lot. You're on social media a lot, and the reason I watch you a lot, I watch a Boyce Watkins a lot. There are a couple of folks I watch a lot, because every time I watch you, you add value to my life. You're teaching me something. You're saying something of substance. Now, I post every single day. I've been on Facebook for at least 11 years, and I post every day. I've got thousands of posts, and you will never see a post by me that isn't
That's
adding
true.
value to people's lives. There's some quote that I am quoting, either something original I wrote or someone that I'm quoting. right? I don't want you to just look at a picture of me doing whatever, whatever, whatever. I want to pour into you. That is a fundamental and founding principle on how I operate. You operate the same way. This is why you have such a large following, because you add value to people's lives. And one of the biggest mistakes we make when networking, it's one of the seven biggest mistakes, is that you bring nothing to the table, right? That you're not committed, not you, I'm talking about in general, you're not committed to lifelong learning, constant never ending improvement, personal growth and development. You're not a subject matter expert, you're average, right? And you read. So I watch you because you fill me up, you inform me, you make me a better human being. And you get these, and I get these in micro doses. That's the advantage of social media. But you said the right thing. I do a lot of editing people out who bring no value to my time, right? Thousands. I've got thousands following me, so do you. And I have to, over the course of years, I've edited out thousands of people because it's just simply a waste of time. If you want to be an effective networker, you have to bring something to the table. You have to be amazing at what you do. You have to be engaged in lifelong learning, constant never ending improvement, and personal growth and development. And you have to have some subject matter expertise. That's a big mistake that so many people, in the name of networking, do not bring to the table. And eventually, their relationships do not stick, they do not bond, they do not last. And we just sort of bless them and release them and we move on. We don't curse anybody out. We don't say anything negative about it. We just don't spend our precious time doing that. So, social media plays a really, really important role in meeting large numbers of people. Not all of them you have a personal relationship with. But if you look at yourself as as one of service, as a teacher, as an instructor, as a person of purpose, it gives me great joy, to be honest with you, to be able to put something out in this mass universe that is of value. And my philosophy on posting, because I don't do a lot of the video stuff that you do, is that I want to be able to feed you something that you can consume in less than 20 seconds. So most of my quotes, you can read them in less than 20 seconds, and something that makes you go, hmm, aha. That's my goal. And the number of meaningful relationships, the number of people that have come to the Power Networking Conference, just simply as a result of me feeding them. We're getting ready to do our conference now, August the 3rd through the 7th, in Houston, Texas. And 90% of the people that will be at this conference
Mm.
are from social media, right? I have befriended them. They have befriended me. I post for them. They post for me, and it is a wonderful tool. Now, it's not everything. I love social media, but it will never replace live and in living color networking.
Yeah,
The human
one of the
touch.
best pieces of advice
That's
early on, again,
huge.
as I got involved in social media, it came from Brent Leary, who was just a very a tech guy, customer service expert, CSR expert, CRM expert, customer resource management expert, and he said, so your online interaction should facilitate more effective in-person interaction. As you said, they're not one doesn't substitute for the other. You can be very effective online, but if you're not
That's
using
right.
that to leverage more effective in-person interaction, then you're just kind of spinning your wheels, you know. But with the other element, George, in terms of
That's
meaningful
right.
relationships, and I'm glad you said that because, yeah, I know people, some of our friends or acquaintances, they have a million followers, but they only have really maybe 1% of them are meaningful interactions, versus somebody that may have 1,000 followers, but 90% of those actions are meaningful. And I'm
That's
yeah,
right.
and I'm speaking directly in terms of what I
An excellent
why
point.
I am so glad to have you in my life. Going back to me being a young editor, and I don't know how you remember it, but when we first met, I was a new young editor at BE, and I was still finding my sea legs. learning how to deal with
Oh yeah.
Mr.
No, I
Graves'
remember.
peers who are very powerful people. And I'm, again, I'm, 28, 29 years old. And the thing that I'll always associate with you, George, over the years that I've gotten to know you is the degree to which you actually care. And I mean, sometimes I don't even remember half of the things I remember. We were at an event, I think, in Boston, where I think I was moderating a conversation with Russell Simmons, and we were there. And the way when we encounter each other, you pull me aside and say, you pour something into me, you say something that you see in me, you're encouraging me, and I'm like, this man got better things to do, and I see that in your social media interactions too. Like you said, you're if it's not wisdom, it's
Right.
encouragement.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's funny and it's wisdom. Sometimes
That's
it's
right.
funny and it's encouragement. But the idea that you actually
Yeah,
care about people
you know what I remember?
comes through
You know what I
in your
remember?
interaction.
Yeah. You know what? I remember three things about you. You made a very, very good first impression. You were humble, you were respectful, very bright, and you were all ears, right? You really wanted to learn. You wanted to know. You always asked good questions, right? That's a sign of
Thank you.
brilliance. Um, and that impression of you burned into my subconscious mind, and you have continued that trajectory. You're even smarter. You're just as kind, just as giving, just as loving, just as serving as I remember you. And your success has not spoiled you. It has made you a better human being, better capable of serving, better and more. And that's what growth is about. And that's a beautiful thing. So let me just one little piece. The New England Journal of Medicine came out with a major study on the three most productive periods of your life. The third most productive period of your life is between 50 and 60. The second most productive period of your life is between 70 and 80. And the number one most productive period of your life, Alfred, is between 60 and 70. So, what does that say? God has designed us to do our best work between 50 and 80 years old. So, everything from
Amen.
0 to
It's a
50
number to the
is
word, brother.
training, it's
Yes.
overcoming obstacles, it's learning. That's all it's about. What is the first thing God does when He gives you an assignment that He feels that you're ready for? He puts an obstacle in your way, and your job is to find a way over, around, through, and under the obstacle to learn the lessons, to stumble and fall, because you learn far more from failure than you do from success, and you have to be open to that. And then you overcome that obstacle. You get an attaboy or an attagirl from God, and then you get your next assignment at a slightly higher level. And then what's the next thing God does? He puts an obstacle in your way. And that is your challenge to learn what it takes to get whatever that job done. So this is a beautiful thing. And so we're constantly learning and growing. And this is what I say all that to say that this is what I've seen in you, right? And you're still
62,
young.
sir.
What are you, 50?
Yes, sir.
You're
Yes,
62?
sir.
No, you look 40. I mean, and not only that, but you're brilliant. You don't even age. That's incredible. So you're doing
No,
your
no,
you're beginning to do your
George,
best work, right? Your best work, the best work, the number one
George,
is between
I
60 and
literally, and if
70.
anybody who's looking at my Instagram right this second will see the second most recent post, which is, again, I'm into the bodybuilding. You see the trophies behind me, and me saying that my motivation for working out as I do is understanding that I'm supposed to be alive to do my best work past 50, and that particularly for people of color, African Americans, too many of us are either too sick to do our best work past 50, to be in our 70s, and like I said, you're going and going and going, or we're not around. You think of the prominent executives, for example, who die of any number of preventable illnesses between the ages of 40 and 55. And I tell people that's not just the tragedy of a lost life and a family member, it's the tragedy of a lost earning potential. And we're talking about closing the racial wealth gap in America. Part of the challenge is we can't keep losing so many people in what should be our most productive years, or before we even reach those years. So when you said what you said about, and I wasn't aware of that research, that the three most productive times in your life happen after the age of 50, between 50 and 80. It, it, I don't know how better to underscore in a very statistical way that when we say health is wealth, we're not just talking, just an adage. It literally is wealth, because
That's
God
right.
designed us to do our best
That's
work
right.
in the second half of our
That's right.
lives, and half shouldn't be 25 to 50. Half should be 50 to 100
That's
if we're
right.
doing,
That's right. Your wealth. You said it so beautiful. Your wealth. You hit it on the head, and you practice it. Your health,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
And your relationships, your friendship. That's where your real wealth is. Those are the folks that you serve and add value to their life. You're remunerated for that, and people that serve you, right? And then your health. Your health. I mean, uh, John Paul Getty died a very miserable death. He was one of the first billionaires in America. And he said that he would give all of his money
Mm,
away if he could just eat a decent meal. That's how sick he
mm.
was. And money could not get it fixed. So your health. So I'm 77. I'm proud of my health. I keep my weight in check. But God, you don't know what's going on inside your body, but you just do all the things that you can to be in the best shape that you can so that you can do your work. I'm 77, just still doing my work, still
At a
putting on
high
conferences, still writing
at a
books,
high
still
level. Again,
posting,
this is not,
still engaged,
it's
still
not,
reading
you're barely, getting through.
at a high
Again, like I
level.
said, I'm just fortunate to be able to catch you to have this conversation because you're moving. Um,
Yeah. Well, you look great, man. You look
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
unbelievable for
Well,
62. Unbelievable.
it's an investment. Like I said,
You're taking
I
care of
can't
yourself.
expand my earning power and my earning potential if I'm not taking care of my capacity to live and to serve, as you said. So at this time we have left, I do want to make sure, one of the things that we also know from whether we're public speakers, whether we're networking, whether it's conferences, is that I tell people is what you do after this conversation, after the event, that dictates the value of the event. And so obviously we're not going to solve all the secrets of networking in a 15-minute conversation. But I really do want to get your thoughts. Two things I
Well,
want to do while we have time. One, helping people to understand how they can stay connected with what you're doing. I want you to give more specifics about the Fraser Net Conference, where people can find you on social. If there's books. I know I focus on the classic Success Runs in Our Race and Click, but what's the best way for people to still stay in touch with what you're doing?
the
Yes.
best way, and the way I keep in touch with you, Alfred, is through social media. Um, Follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and TikTok. So follow me on social media. I post something inspirational, aspirational, maybe funny or instructional every single day. Okay? So follow me on social media. Everything you want to know about what I'm doing in my life, including the events that I produce, I post it all on social media. So that's the simplest way to do it. So, number two, what do you do after the conference, after the meeting? So let me give everybody a quick little system. And I say this to entrepreneurs all the time. If you don't have a system, you don't have a business. I don't know what the hell you have, but it ain't a business. Something that you can replicate, duplicate, and scale. You got to have a system. The same thing with networking. You got to have a system. So I'm going to give you my system. This is the system I've been using for 40 years. I do 5 things every single day, 365 days a year, right? And I've been doing it for 40 plus years, and this is what accounts for the massive, loving, caring, and serving network that I have. Here are the 5 things I do after the meeting, after the conference, or after anything that you're engaged in. These are things that you need to habitualize. You do them automatically. You don't even have to think about them, right? So these have been habitualized. I just I do them subconsciously. What are the 5 things that I do every single day? I send out 5 notes every single day to somebody in my network. Now, I always have a bunch of cards, just special note, good to see you, good to meet you, whatever the case may be. Now, these are minimums. Now, this is extraordinarily easy with social media, right? I used to do this by hand, right, on a card and a fountain pen. No, so that's a minimum of 5 notes a day to people in my network. That's number one. Number two, I make 5 phone calls every single day to old friends and family. Now you got to manage that, okay? So you might get a call. My brother might get a call from me that say, Scotty, I'm just getting on a plane. I'm on my way to Houston. I was just thinking about you. I wanted to say hello. How you doing? Right? So you got to manage that because you can stay on the phone with old friends and family in an ordinate amount of time, just catching up on old times. So that's number two. Number three, I make 5 personal contacts a day to new friends. New friends. I'm looking here in my office here. These are cards I just got, right? New friends. Right, so I pick up at least 5 of those cards, and I either will text them, or I will email them, or I will call them. It just depends on the circumstances. I may go out to lunch. I may go out to dinner. It just depends on the circumstances. But every single day, I'm I'm connecting with new people. That's number three. Number four, I make 5 sales calls every single day, Alfred, but I'm not selling anything. I make these sales calls to people that I have sold things to in the past. But the last thing I want people to think about, Dr. George Fraser, is the only time that you
Wow.
hear from me is when I have something to sell you. Okay, how's the family? How are the kids? Because I keep notes of the people that I've sold. They've been married for 25 years. Their wife is pregnant, or whatever the case may be, and then I sort of catch up. So that's the fourth thing I do every single day, and then finally the fifth thing. Now this is the most important one. I make 5 introductions every single day
Mhm.
to people who need to know each other. And I've been doing that for 20 years. I cannot even begin to tell you what that has accrued to me in my life and for other people. 5 introductions every day to people who need to know each other. And I simply do them by email.
Dr. Fraser.
Email. Sometimes I'll do it by phone, but email. Hey Bob, I met someone the other day that's in your business, and he's a heck of a nice guy, or a awesome sister. You really need to meet this, and I do it both
Well,
ways,
one,
so
I
they,
know this is
you know,
true,
they they
but
know each
one,
other,
I know
and
this
I
is
do
true
that
because
every
over the
single
years
day.
you've introduced me to people,
Introducing
so
people
I
to
know it's
introducing
true.
people.
But two, and people talk, and I'm big into mentoring because you follow me on social media, so I got an army of people I mentor. But they say, where do you get it from? That's how I get it from my mentors, people like you, certainly Mr. Graves. I said, Audrey Edwards, the former executive editor at Essence, who's been a mentor to me over the
That's
years.
right.
And I said, that's where I learned it from. And so, I didn't think about it until you talked about your 5, and I'm like, that's where I get that habit from. I was literally speaking to the actor Las Alonso, who was on the show as a guest, and he's one. We've been friends for maybe about 20 years,
Right.
and I have a list of people, like you said, and the things we have so many tools that we didn't have 25 years ago to make your 5 things doable. And I have a list of people who I'll just text them. I'll sit down and say, "Oh, it's time for me to do it."
Right.
I'll sit down and I'll find, you know, half a dozen people and say, "Just checking to see how you're doing. Just want you to know I'm thinking about you. You don't even have to respond if you don't want to. I just want you to know, I'm not asking you for anything. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm not trying to get you to speak
That's
at a
right.
Black Enterprise event. I'm not trying to do art.
That's
All I'm
right.
doing is letting you know that somebody is thinking about you in a world where, yes,
That's right.
yep,
And oftentimes, you know what
yep.
I do? You know what I do? Oftentimes, I'll recommend a book. Hey, I just, finished reading this great book on Google. I just finished reading this latest Malcolm Gladwell book. Uh,
And
I'll recommend a book. I'll
to your
recommend
point
something
about
that I
introductions, when I get
absolutely
a new,
read and enjoyed, right?
yeah,
And you might
the
enjoy
way
it
of
too.
giving.
So it's
And,
something
and when I get
simple.
a new
It's a
mentee, I
way
don't
of
just
giving.
adopt them
That's
as
what
my
we're doing.
mentee.
We're giving. That's what
Again,
you're
I have a
doing.
network of mentees, and one of our rules is we all have to help each other. So when I get a new mentee, I say, okay, and here's five other people in my network that you don't know who will also call me a mentor, and I tell them this is one of our people. Be available to them. And you're right, the exponential reward for everyone involved. That's what real networking is about. I'm telling you, you're not introducing people to other people. If you think networking is all about who you meet and whose number you have in your phone, and you're not saying, "But let me connect you to these other people," is it really networking? So everything you're teaching. I'm glad some of it sank in from you,
Amen.
that I've absorbed
Amen.
some George
Amen. Amen.
Frazier
Amen.
habits that
And
that really have served me and served some of the people who I try to serve. And again, you're the master networker.
that's right. Spend the time, brothers and sisters. Spend the time. That's one of the big problems that we have, especially we did a major study, and I'm not BSing you. Here's it. We hired the Gallup organization to do a major study. That says Gallup organization, and then this says FraserNet. Right? We did a major study, cost us 50 grand. Now we could have done the study ourselves because we were eminently qualified, but we knew that black people would believe white people before they believed us. So we did a major
Mm.
study on the fundamental difference between white people networking and black people networking. And at the end of the day, we found out that white folks spend about 40% of their time working on cultivating, nurturing, and building relationships at work, at home, in the community. As a result of that, they have about 175 highly developed, productive contacts. Black people, when we did this study, it was a decade ago, spent less than 20% of their time. In fact, 18% of the black respondents said didn't feel that networking was important. They felt that their college degree was more important than their network. All right. So we spend less than 20% of our time at the time of this study, resulting in less than 40 highly productive and effective relationships, right? So spend more time working on cultivating, nurturing, and building relationships at work, at home, and in the community, because that's really where your wealth is. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that money, hard cash, isn't wealth. Yes, it is,
Yes.
but it's going to come from who? People. That's what it's going to come from. People that serve you and people that you serve, whether it's family members, whether it's people who trade in within your business, and you're actually trying to do business with them. It's going to come from people, and people do business with
Yeah.
people that they know,
Yes.
that they like, and that they trust.
And you
That's what
can't
they do.
build being known,
They
being
know,
liked, and
and
trusted
they
without
like, and that they
relationships,
trust.
without engaging in those relationships. I tell people it's not a spectator sport. It's not just going to happen because you showed up. You got to engage. Dr. Fraser, I just want to close out with I try to be
Amen.
forward thinking as with every guest on this show. We talk about what has happened, we talk about what is happening, what should be happening, and then I always want to kind of close out with what you like to see happen. And you're clearly not just in the business of what you wish, because you're still actively trying to accomplish things and making things happen. What is it that you, particularly in the area of effective networking for Black people? Let's narrow focus it to Black enterprise audience. What is it that you want to see and that you're working to make happen for us to really do this thing more effectively in 2022 and going forward? What is it that you see, would want to see, and I think we all should be working toward as we get better at this on behalf of our communities, our businesses, our families, and ultimately the nation and the world.
Yeah. To continue to study and to learn the art and science of effective networking so that we can become better at collaboration. That's what I want. So that we can connect the dots and leverage more effectively our collective resources and intellectual capital and recycle our dollars and save ourselves because no one is saving us, Al, but us, right? I think President Obama said it, we are the ones that we are looking for. No one is saving us but us. We will do it through love and respect and trust and through effective collaboration. Effective collaboration. That's number one. And number two, I won't see this in my lifetime, but I am praying that by the end of the 21st century, that black people become the number one employer of their own people, right? Jews are the number one employer of Jews. Asians are the number one employer of Asians. East Indians are the number one employer of Asians. We too ultimately must become the number one employer of our own people, building businesses. And this is critical because by building businesses, this is the way that you raise up the poor. You, in fact, provide jobs and training for them because they are like you, they are of you, they are like mine in culture, and you have a moral, and we all have a moral and spiritual responsibility to reach down and to lift up and to reach back and pull forward. So we are the ones that we're looking for. It will be done through self-love, which will lead to high race esteem, because low race esteem comes from lack of love, self-love. So that's what I'm hoping for and praying for the next 100 years for our people. Love and trust, collaboration, and building and starting
Dr.
businesses so
George
that
C. Fraser,
we
my
can employ
mentor,
ourselves.
my friend, I just so glad that you stopped what you were doing. I think you just came back from Cabo, or you're on your way to Cabo, wherever you're doing, and said, "No, I will stop to be a guest on Beyond the Hype." Thank you so much for everything you've done, everything you're doing now. Obviously, I pray to God to continue to bless you, to continue to do and be the things that you're doing, and just thank you for being a guest on our show, Beyond the Hype.
Alfred, I love you, man. Keep doing God's work. Continue to be all that you can be. And know that you're now between 60 and
Yes,
70
sir.
in the most productive period of your life. In other words, the best of
Yes,
Alfred
sir.
Edmonds is yet to
Thank you. I
come.
love you too, sir.
I'm looking
And thank
forward
you
to
for your
that.
encouragement and your
Love
example.
you, man. You take care. It's so good to be
Well,
with you.
this is a landmark edition, another great edition of Beyond the Hype. Thank you for joining us. I'm Alfred Edmonds Jr., Senior Vice President, Executive Editor at Large for Black Enterprise. This episode of Beyond the Hype was brought to you by Citi, and it's a memorable episode indeed. So I'm glad you were here to enjoy it. Spread the word, and be back for the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye. Celebrate the excellence in Black men at the Black Enterprise Black Men Excel Summit. Meet our country's best and brightest Black men who are redefining their image.
We need to make sure that the world knows that we are here and that we are doing our business, so let us salute ourselves for that.
Be there this October 12th through the 14th at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center in National Harbor, Maryland.
It's time for people to see that Black men are doing great things and doing it positively.
By doing this Excel Summit, it empowers us, it inspires us to be more creative and to do things that we haven't necessarily or traditionally done.
I met some great people here that I plan to do business with in the future, and I plan to learn from.
This was an eye-opening experience.
For more information, log on to blackenterprise.com/BMX.